Time again for AI mistakes. Boy, today do we have an interesting story to tell. Look, you know that I'm the AI mistakes guy, and we've got to talk about what's not working well. And this one's going to be kind of interesting. Now, we talk about AI mistakes on the channel quite a lot, but today, what I want to cover is not only that AI is out there making mistakes, but the humans, it turns out, are not so infallible either. We've got lots of interesting details to share today. I'm going to take you through some case study. We're going to have a little fun talking about where we're making those problems ourselves in the way that we're using the AI, in the way that we're adopting it. And we're going to talk about some ways that maybe we could do a little bit better. I want to be pragmatic in our approach to looking at the use of AI, and that means that we need to use a critical eye in evaluating the technology and how we use it. There is some very interesting discussion that we can apply to these studies in the use of AI between humans and computers. There's a lot that we can learn, and not all of it is particularly nascent. In other words, we've had technology around us for many years, and we've had the opportunity to learn a lot of really great lessons. So, I want to show you some of the mistakes that are happening out in the great wide world, and let's talk about how we can do a little bit better. And one of the fun things that we get to do today is talk about this in terms of using AI to make all of this happen. You see, not that long ago, in fact, it was only about a week ago, OpenAI released their most recent iteration to their model. They released the O1 preview and the O1 mini. And of course, I got to work with the AI. So today's presentation content is brought to you with the help of OpenAI's O1 model. I got a chance to kick the tires on its thinking and how it approaches a problem. We have a lot to learn, especially as this technology develops and evolves. So you'll get to see what I put together with the help of O1, mistakes and all, in today's discussion. So where can we start with this conversation around human and bot or AI and computing interaction? Well, the first idea that I want to share with you is the fact that, look, AI is kind of a double-edged sword for us, right? We get carried away with the potential, the possibilities, the opportunities that AI presents to us as we are finding new ways to apply it to the work that we do. So the first thing I want to cover, right, is here we are, we're thinking about all of the ways that we can use the technology, but we also need to think about the humans that are involved, because as soon as we elevate the technology above the humans that are using that technology, we start to have some problems. And that's what we're going to talk about in these case studies, because we want to prevent the bad outcomes. We want to make the mistakes in places where they don't create catastrophic harm, create problems with our community, most importantly, the people that we're with. So the first topic of conversation today, there's a lot of great and interesting insights that are out on social media. And Santiago, pretty brilliant guy, working on AI for a long time. He's got some courses out there. You can learn about all of the details in applying AI and machine learning. And he made a comment this week that really hit a nerve with me. And that is that if you're working for a company and you're employed as a developer, but that organization is telling you that you can't use AI in getting that work done, he's saying it may be time for you to move on and find a new place of employ. And I want to talk about this a little bit because I think there are some good things and some bad things about this approach to reality. See, we know that in terms of the total output and capability of developers, that having that assistant, that collaborator for writing code, leads to a tremendous increase in their ability to deliver and create that code and output. Now, depending on where you are in your career and how deeply you have been involved in the practice of coding, you probably have one of two reactions to the AI. One is I want it to do the grunt work for me and help me get the work done. And the other is I want to have the idea, tell it what to do, and I want it to just get done. And the reality is that both of these approaches are valid, but not necessarily are they in common. What do I mean? When you're writing code, when you're learning to manipulate and leverage a computer language, there's a lot of things that you have to pick up on. In fact, to go from being able to make minor edits to code to being able to write the entire thing yourself, there's a pretty significant learning curve. Now, many of us have ideas that we simply want to get implemented, and models like O1 from OpenAI that was just released actually only needs the seed of the idea. If you are able to relate your vision and explain to it what you want to accomplish, it can help you get there. The earlier models and tools like Claude or Llama are much more procedural, I would call them, in that you have to lay out the step by step. You have to help it understand how it can get from point A to point B. You have to give it the context of what you want to accomplish. So we are in the middle of an evolution in terms of what the models are capable of outputting and how much time and effort is necessary to achieve those results. But if you're a detail coder, you may not like the AI filling out your details. You may get irritated by the autocomplete features. But for me, it's tremendously valuable because I know several different languages, but they're not all my strongest language. To be fair, if I write a program in Python, I'd like having that little bit of extra help to fill out the details because I've been writing C and PowerShell and Java and COBOL for the majority of my career. So if you gave me a blank piece of paper, I could probably write everything you need into a Java program just out of memory because I've done it enough. If you asked me to do that with Python, I would probably struggle with some of the libraries or perhaps even some of the syntax because I'm not working with that language all the time. I dabble with it in electronics in my lab at home, and I work with it for doing AI related projects. But again, most of the time that's a template and I'm adapting it for my own purposes. I'm not writing the entire thing from scratch anymore. So the reality is there is legitimate value to having AI as your co-pilot, as your helper in developing an application. And so what we have with Santiago's comment, I think is really valid. If you are at an organization that is not taking advantage of the tools that are available and unlocking your creativity and your ability to get the work done, that bears serious consideration because the environment today is moving very rapidly and things are changing at a pace that's pretty unbelievable, to be quite honest. And we need to keep that in focus because you have to continually work to stay ahead. You and I have so many things to learn. In fact, I had a conversation with a colleague this week and we were discussing this very problem that when things are moving really fast, you have to be able to focus on exactly the right things in the moment, and that can be a real challenge if you're not able to deploy those most recent tools to the work that you're doing. So let's think about critically what are the right ways to apply the technology to the work that we do and get busy doing that because we can really get ahead and do some amazing things if we're able to focus on exactly the right space. Speaking of evolving and using tools, the next case I have to share with you is a really interesting one. We have been talking about the use of AI in lots of places. And in fact, I use AI a lot to help me with my grammar and improve my writing so that I can get my message out. That allows me to focus on the message rather than the details. Well, we've got some social media organizations out there that also want to use AI, and today's public service notice is brought to you by LinkedIn. If you're using LinkedIn, you may or may not have seen a lot of the posts this week covered the change that LinkedIn made. It turns out that they want to build models and they've been leveraging the data that you and I create in order to make that happen. And the unfortunate part of this conversation is that the way that they went about doing this was perhaps not so upfront. Firstly, they've added the option for you to opt out, but the default configuration of that option is that your data, your posts, the things that you say on their website are by default added to their model and used to create new models. The other problem is, of course, that there was absolutely no change to their terms of services or their privacy policy. They simply didn't disclose that they were doing this. It just sort of happened behind the scenes. So a lot of folks have been sharing their instructions on exactly how to turn this off. And if you're on LinkedIn, go to your settings, data privacy, and you'll find that data for generative AI improvement. And you can toggle that on or off. Now, this may not be something that you care about. This may not be an issue for you, but some people are very concerned about the use of AI with what they are posting on social media. Is it a good thing that they're including your content in building their model? Well, I could see a situation where you might find that to be useful and perhaps even something that you'd like to see happen. The problem here is that LinkedIn made the unilateral decision to include your content, and they weren't transparent about the way that they were doing it. I don't think that this is a good way to handle where we are. In fact, I think we need to be very clear about what we're using AI to do and how we're using it so that we can understand where the mistakes can happen. But I mean, the truth is, look, you and I can make the mistake just as easily as the AI can. And in this case, we have an organization that's making the mistake rather than the AI. Also, given the quality of things that are in social media, I'm honestly not sure how great an idea that this is, but the reality of where we are today in the AI universe, look, Meta's got their models, right? They've open sourced Llama. They're doing that work today. So I think there's probably a lot of folks at LinkedIn that feel like they have a big opportunity to do something very similar, a business focused technology capability that lets you compose social media posts and inform people. Look, there's a lot of great information that's out on social media. There's also a lot of not great information that's out on social media. And these are one of the very first issues that come up when an organization wants to begin applying AI to the things that they do. They want to know, how is my information going to be used? That's an important consideration for you. Even if you're using it just personally, having used many of the various AI platforms, you have to recognize that anything you enter into those platforms is potential fodder for building a model. And you have to be aware of what those terms and conditions are. And I think it's entirely appropriate to demand and expect that those organizations disclose exactly what that's going to look like. It's an important thing to consider. And I think it's really valuable to be upfront if you are serving customers. Let them know, what are you building? How are you building it? What controls do they have? What choices do they have for deploying or controlling the information that they are using with the platform? Okay, now this one hits a little close to home because I have personally experienced exactly this situation. And I came across this tweet this week, and man, I so agree with this sentiment. We have Gary Marcus, who, if you've been in the AI space, actually is pretty widely known. He's done quite a bit of work in the early days of artificial intelligence. He's been a major detractor from the generative AI space, but I like to read Gary's tweets because he brings that contrarian perspective. Sometimes he shares something that's really interesting and perhaps valuable. I think this is probably one of those cases. He had a personal anecdote. He's been a customer of hotels.com, and he had some challenges with his booking most recently. He went to the site and began to interact with the virtual agent that hotels.com provided for support purposes. Now, in Gary's case, he didn't actually type in what his problem was. He jumped right to connect me with a human. But honestly, I have to tell you, I think that's fair. If you're looking for support on something and you don't want to go through the virtual agent, I think that's something you should be allowed to do, especially if you're a customer, a paying customer, no less, of an organization or platform. Obviously, Organizations that provide services get to choose what level of customer service they want to provide. And in this case, Hotels.com decided that they simply weren't going to connect to a human. So, what happened here? Well, the reality is that someone, a human, made a decision about the way that they were going to support their customers on the website. Deploying a virtual agent can honestly be really valuable. I've seen some incredible numbers for people being able to self service, solve their own problems with the help of a virtual agent. But I've also seen some really bad experiences. And this is definitely one of those. If you're out there building virtual agents, if you're leveraging virtual agents for customer support, technical support, or any kind of help that you're making available to the customers, I firmly believe, and I am unshaken in this philosophy, you need to provide an avenue to a human. Look, the AI is getting better all the time. We might perhaps someday in the future reach a point where an AI or virtual agent actually can do a better job than the humans can of solving the problem. I don't think we're there yet. You're still going to have cases where you simply cannot anticipate the needs of the customer ahead of time. And you need to be able to adapt to that situation. In Gary's case, he actually proclaimed subsequently to the tweet that Hotels.com has lost a customer because he had no way to talk to a human. And that was something that he found to be essential for good customer service. I too find the ability to connect to a human to be incredibly valuable in certain situations. I like to self service. If I can solve my own problem with a virtual agent, great, because I can probably do it faster that way. But also, if I have an edge case, I got to talk to a human. So don't make this mistake in your deployment and use of AI. Yes, have it augment the ability to answer to questions. Put your FAQ in the bot, right? If I ask something that's on the FAQ, give me that answer, but also give me the option to talk to a human, because I know if my problem is complex enough to demand a human. Now, there are some folks out there that just simply prefer a human. And honestly, yeah, it does cost more to service that request, but also if that's what it takes to deliver good customer service, I think it's the right thing to do. We've all had those bad experiences. And so this is just yet another case where if you aren't designing things in the right way, you're going to have a bad outcome. So don't let that happen, right? Let's build these systems in a way that enables us to take advantage of the strengths of the AI without aggravating our customers and the people that we're there to provide help for. I mean, honestly, all of this stuff is here for us. So let's not make it harder on the humans that are involved. Okay, now this next one is really interesting. We started off the conversation today thinking about how it's really important to give your development team members the ability to use AI to do their work. Well, what's interesting in this case is that this person, Jeremy Howard, is enabling lots of capability by sharing code. In fact, he's got some AI capabilities, and he's even got the opportunity for you to contribute code or perhaps just feedback to the work that he's doing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that have gotten very excited about AI writing code. And one of the challenges is that AI is able to generate content like we've never seen before. Unfortunately, a lot of people are out there doing it in a way that's not really contributing to the narrative. What we have happening here in Jeremy's case is that there are people out there that are submitting pull requests to the code base that he is running an open source project against on GitHub. So you can go and contribute changes to his project to improve the functionality. But what he's experiencing is that people are submitting PRs that aren't very useful, or perhaps in a worst case scenario, are code changes that don't even work because they've not done their homework and completed the testing to make it correct. This is not a good thing. We want to have community projects where we're able to contribute and make things better. And if you're simply using an AI bot to write code and you're submitting it to an open source project without testing it, validating it, or being sure what it does, that's not good. In fact, in the security space, we've been talking about this concept of the software supply chain, where we are oftentimes using a great deal of software that we don't understand or to a larger degree control. You'll simply go to the tool and update all of the dependencies and bundle that up in your project and deploy it. Well, in those dependencies, there is a lot of potential for vulnerability. Worse yet, it is possible and has happened on several occasions where a bad actor has uh, obtained custody of one of those open projects that is included in many other projects, and they've intentionally injected vulnerabilities or backdoors that allow them to take control of a system through the use and inclusion of those files in the larger supply chain of the application that you own. In Jeremy's case, he's seeing that people are contributing information that's not valuable using AI. And I really have to stand behind what Jeremy is talking about in his message here. What he is saying in talking about this is, look, don't put your name on top of something that you don't fully stand behind, that you don't understand. It is up to us to ensure the quality of the work that we do. And even if AI can turn out some great looking code, you need to be sure that it's working. Don't put your name on something that's not yours. We've had this discussion over the last couple of years of how do we designate when AI is building something. A lot of schools have adopted the policy that you have to cite that you used AI in composing something, or it's academic dishonesty. From a patent or copyright standpoint, we're in a situation where you cannot assign those rights to an AI because they're not a person. You can't copyright a work by an AI. That has to be attributed to a person. Now, a person can take ownership of that copyright and use AI in composing that, but it has to be a person that's attached to it, and they have to materially contribute to it. They can't simply take the output of an AI and claim it to their name. So there are things that are out there happening, and people are making these mistakes in how they are using the AI. Even if AI is able to turn out perfect results, we have to have a human involved to ensure that things are working well. And there's a couple of reasons why. And we'll get to that here in just a moment. Before I continue with the conversation, for those of you that have joined the live conversation, I'd like to invite you to ask questions. I also want to tell you, I really appreciate you being here to watch the program, to join the discussion, and I'd love to hear your comments. I'd also appreciate it if you'd subscribe or connect with me on social media. There's a lot of details to share, and I'm trying to create a valuable experience here that you all enjoy, and your engagement helps me to know and understand what it is that you like and engage you better in conversation, because that's what we're here to do, to learn about AI, to make mistakes and learn with and by AI. And look, we've got another really interesting angle to discuss. A few weeks ago on the live conversation, I shared with you some of the disconcerting information I've seen on social media that really showed that some people were misunderstanding the level of cognition or aptitude or reality that is behind these AI chatbots and tools that are out there. Look, people are creating AI influencers where they are portending to be human or engaging in a relationship as if they were a human. And some people are really taken away by this. I think this is a really dangerous component of AI. And what I want you to know is that it is absolutely possible to fall victim to this, because one of the things that even the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, has expressed concern about is the fact that AI can be very persuasive. So, what do we do with this? Well, we need to understand that it is possible for us to be manipulated by AI. One of the challenges that we have, and I've seen this myself and talked about it with my family members. My eldest daughter, we've had a couple of interactions using the AI tools because I'm doing this all day, every day. They know that I know how to use the tools. But also, I've made it very clear with them that they're not to just go out and use ChatGPT to do all of their work. If they're going to leverage the AI for getting their work done, I want to sit down with them and help them with it, help them to use it effectively and in a way that's going to enrich their minds, because the mind is the most powerful computer we've ever known. It may be organic, but it's all yours. So focus on improving that in what you do. Well, one of the challenges that we have is that we've made a compliant system. If you're interacting with an AI system like OpenAI's ChatGPT or Claude's Anthropic, you might have noticed that when you ask it for something, it's very compliant. If you tell it that it's wrong, often it will say, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Let me fix that." It often takes whatever you give it, and it simply won't argue or contest the information. This is a little bit dangerous because the reality is, for us to learn, oftentimes we have to be corrected. And we are working with these systems and using them oftentimes in ways that allows the model to respond favorably to our interaction because it doesn't want to create a problem. The challenge here is that we are not getting that uncomfortable truth. We are not getting the feedback that we need. We are not getting any kind of real criticism from the model. And I think that this is something that we can do better with. In fact, I have actually started to include in my prompts challenges that say, hey, find the problem with what I'm saying, be critical. And one of the things that happened for me this week was I saw on a social media post someone was sharing a brand new AI tool that lets you basically have like a social media post that's only reacted to by artificial intelligence bots. Now, this is a really interesting application of the technology. It's called social AI, and I've got it here on my app. It's very unimpressive. It's just text on a screen, but you basically post your comment, and after you do your post, you can choose the kind of feedback or responses that you want. And as you can see here, I've chosen a lot of different AIs to respond to my post. And you get to choose how these AI bots are responding to your post, what kind of sentiment that they're going to post. They can be contrarians, they could be, uh, you know, bots that are going to disagree with you. And I think that that's really valuable to get a collection of responses to your thoughts to better inform what it is that you're doing so that you don't fall into this trap of having the AI echo whatever it is that you want, because that I think is really dangerous. Look, we already know about the dangers of social media. There's been a lot of studies. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we have going forward with social media is this sort of algorithmic feed generation, where instead of letting you choose simply people that you want to follow or connect with, it's actually choosing what it's going to put on the screen in front of you. That can be potentially dangerous. And I think we have exactly the same risk with AI. In trying to make it a system that everybody wants to use, sometimes we go a little too far in deciding what's appropriate. But I really like what is in this post. Alex does a really great job of calling this out. And I want you to see this too. Before you answer, make a list of wrong assumptions people make about the concepts included in this question. See, this is actually plugging in a prompt that's going to help you be more critical in your thought, in your approach. We have the power to use AI to do a lot of incredible things. And one of those incredible things should be the enrichment of your mind, making you better so that if you don't have the AI in your pocket, you've still got an intelligent response. You've thought things through and included that as a part of how you approach your problems or build your responses. I really think this is an underutilized skill, and there's a lot of opportunity here. So don't miss that opportunity to use AI in ways that are perhaps going to enrich you, but not be as much fun. We have this fascination with having a good time. Now, I want to close the conversation today with a reference to a really excellent book that I read actually quite a few years ago that I think is exceptionally relevant to the circumstances that we are in. And I've read this book both in its written form and listened to it on audible.com because, look, it's been a great life hack for me to be able to listen to books while I'm traveling so I can drive the vehicle and learn while I'm doing it. The Glass Cage was put out a number of years ago by Nicholas Carr. And I love the name of this book because a good portion of the discussion that Nicholas goes into is where we've been with the world of aviation. So when he uses the term glass cage, it's sort of a mixed metaphor because in the aviation business, it's not uncommon for pilots to call where they sit a glass cockpit. There's a lot of computers that are surrounding them. There's a lot of information that's presented on a computer screen. And in fact, one of the things that we've learned over time with the use of computers in the cockpit is that the evolution of that experience is not always a good one. So in the Glass Cage, he actually talks at length about some of the risks that we have absorbed in the aviation business by the use of tools like autopilot. Autopilot can be a tremendously valuable asset for the pilots, reducing the workload that they are experiencing in running the aircraft. Actually, in the beginning days of aviation, if you had a very large aircraft, you needed 3 people to manage the workload. You had to have someone that was controlling the plane, someone that was focused on the navigating of the plane, and then a third person that was controlling all of the engine and ensuring that all of the mechanicals on the plane were functioning properly. Fast forward a few years, and today the modern aircraft like the 747, some of the largest aircraft that fly the skies, do not have a third officer to control and monitor those jet engines because the computers have made it possible for a pilot and a co-pilot to control and govern the function of the aircraft. That's a really positive change that's come through automation because the computers can really help and ensure that all of the details of the engines are in order. And we have increased the amount of automation that's possible with the autopilot. In fact, it is possible to enter a series of coordinates for the aircraft to follow in navigating to the destination, and the plane will carry those orders out, oftentimes in ways that are more efficient than a human could operate it. In fact, a number of years ago, when we had very high oil prices, many of the airlines instituted new policies that forced the pilots to operate on autopilot because they found that to be more efficient and used less fuel. Unfortunately, there were some outcomes that resulted from those kinds of decisions. One of the outcomes was we saw that when the pilot did need to take over control of the aircraft, they weren't very good at it because the autopilot had taken over much of that load. They weren't getting the repetition, the practice of controlling the aircraft. See, it turns out that for humans to be really effective at doing something, they have to be engaged and connected to the work that is being done. And I think that this is a real danger for us in AI. And in fact, not only do I think it is a real danger, I can actually show you studies that reflect exactly the problems. Last year, there was a series of universities that actually built out a study of the use of advanced generative AI solutions. Some really interesting work was done with a company called BCG. And what they did is they took the population of the analysts that worked for BCG and they gave them these tools to use. In fact, they were handed the ability to leverage the use of AI in completing their work each and every day. And what happened as a result? Well, the results were actually pretty clear. If you want to learn more about the study, it's titled The Jagged Edge of Technology, and it's a really insightful survey. But the outcome of what we learned from this is that there are some critical mistakes that people make in the use of AI. And one of those, unfortunately, is turning off your brain because we see the quality that is coming out of these large language models and we're so taken away by it. We're impressed by it. We think, wow, there's no way that I could come up with a better answer or that I could improve the details that are in the study. And we accept whatever it spits out. And while that is something that is absolutely possible as the AI continues to get better, we are seeing results where it is able to kick out a result that is impressive and accurate and highly relevant to the discussion that we're having. The problem is if we don't scrutinize it, if we don't look at it, if we don't think about the answer and the details that are in the answer, it could be wrong and convincingly so. So, the challenge for you and I going forward as we're using these systems is to keep our brain engaged at every phase of the operation so that we can drive the positive outcomes and really create value with the work that we're doing. Because if you're just going to the AI and it's giving you the answer, it's probably not as good as it could be if you engage your brain. And in fact, the results show that when you turn off the brain, the results are dramatically worse. And the results are better if you apply your mind and leverage the AI as a partner, as a co pilot. And we need to be engineering these systems in a way that activates the human mind and directly involves us. So it's very important that we use human in the loop processes and that we don't design systems that put us at a confrontation with the AI. Look, we can do a great job building these systems if we think about it from day one. How can we make these systems safe? How can we build them effectively? How can we put the human beings involved in an accountable situation where they are leveraging this information to improve the outcomes, increase transparency, and help people learn and improve themselves with what's going on? There are a lot of mistakes that are out there, and I'd like to ask you, have you seen some AI mistakes, or are you seeing any of these things? Are you having interactions with chatbots that are frustrating? Maybe you see something and you have an experience, you're like, wow, this is really bad. I would kind of like to know what that is. I'd love to see it. Let me hear from you. Share those stories with me so that we can sit down and make it a case study and learn the ways that we can improve our lives and the systems that are built with the power of AI. Look, there are so many opportunities for us to learn and improve ourselves with the power of AI. Let's make sure that the mistakes that are being made can be learned from, but let's go make the mistakes ourselves that are small, that are not catastrophic, so that we can make that a part of our core capabilities, improve life and value for those around us. There's a lot of potential here. And if we focus and do the right things, it can be a better world for everybody. And that is really one of the core messages that I want to share with you. Look, AI is really powerful, and there's a lot of folks that are out there that are concerned and afraid of how this technology is going to be deployed and used. In fact, many of you are concerned about the job situation. And I really want to encourage you to take on understanding and using these systems so it can become a key advantage for you going forward, because I see that there are virtually limitless opportunities with the use of the technology if you're able to engage your brain and think about the vision and carry that out. I think we're in a better time than we have ever been with the use of technology to realize our dreams and visions, because it can do a lot of the work with us and for us. So as we continue to evolve those capabilities, we'll continue talking about those things here at AI Mistakes. And until next time, go make some AI mistakes.